The Backlight 3 Pro is Govee's newest, brightest and most accurate yet camera-based TV bias lighting kit. It consists of LED strips that you attach to the back of your TV, a small control box and a camera that sits on top of your screen looking down upon it, watching the content of your screen in order to duplicate it onto the lighting. For the Backlight 3 Pro, Govee has made some massive advances in the camera tech. It's now a triple lens system, which gives much better visibility of your entire screen and allows for a more detailed analysis of the picture, making it HDR compatible, with much more nuance between the brighter and darker areas of the image. You're watching matteralpha.com reviews, home of everything that matters in the smart home. I'm James Bruce and I'm obsessed with flashy lighting, lasers, scanning heads and trippy visuals of all kinds, so I know what I'm talking about. Priced at $180 for the 12-foot variant, suitable for 55 to 65 inch TVs, or $210 for the 16-foot variant suitable for 75 to 85 inch TVs. Don't ask me what you're supposed to do if your TV is 70 inches. My TV is on the lower end of those ranges, and while the smaller kit certainly provides great coverage, it was a little tricky to hide the corner cables. On the other hand, if your TV is on the upper end, you may find corner coverage is a bit sparse, but the overall effect should be the same. So in order to properly compare, I installed this on a TV that already had the previous T3 light and is actually an official Philips Ambilight TV. And the first point of comparison is the sheer pixel density. Built into the TV, you can see the very sparse Ambilight pixels, although they are quite bright, and then the stuck-on LED strips of the T3 light, and the massive difference of the new TV Backlight 3 Pro. You get about 3.5 LEDs to every T3 light LED, and those are now full 5-in-1 RGB white and warm white pixels. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily translate purely into extra brightness. They might be 1/3 as bright, but it does mean you'll have greater definition in the projected colors, more clarity, and as it happens, it's about 30% brighter. Installation is pretty simple. However, be sure to clean your TV thoroughly with isopropyl alcohol. Govee provides some pre-soaked little tissue squares that you can use to do this. This step is essential to get good adhesion by removing any grease first and avoid it peeling off later. The actual LED strips are cut to size already. You just start in a corner, center that strip for that side and then work your way along. Govee also includes some stick-on clips that you can use on corners if needed. I used these for the excess cabling though, and I haven't had any issues yet. You should also stick the control box in the center of your TV and plug in both the power and the LED strip, then flip the TV up normal ways and plug in the camera. This should go in the center as best you can. I don't have a super thin TV to test on, but the actual camera mount is pretty solid and about 85mm wide. The last step for installation is to take the curious orange blobs of foam and position them around your TV. Then open up the Govee app, add a new device and calibrate. The camera will read the orange foam and let you align the screen. I have to say, setup with the triple camera system has made this a trivial step. In the past, it could be annoying to try and get full coverage. You had to tweak the angle of the camera. The triple lens here means that the camera can easily see everything. Now, in order to properly compare to an original Ambilight TV, I actually had to cut the brightness of the Backlight 3 Pro to 50%. Otherwise, it just appeared washed out on camera. So think of this first set of tests as more of a test of color accuracy, latency, and responsiveness rather than brightness. The overall effect is clearly fantastic. And there's plenty of configuration that you can delve into to tweak the output, more or less saturation, more or less granularity, that sort of thing. That said, I still found it wasn't as precise as I would have liked on occasion. It might have been because the camera couldn't see the very top of the screen, I don't think so though, or because the analysis just isn't as fine as I'd hoped, but you can see a difference in this particular scene I'm showing now between the Govee Backlight and the original Ambilight, in that the Ambilight with signal analysis is picking up a small streak of green, while the Govee Backlight is not. And I tried all number of settings, but I just couldn't get it to appear to follow that green at all. I also found some ever so slight color discrepancies on the bottom left of the screen, like a pink hue would follow all the way around and then suddenly get a little more purple over there. And this could have been due to the rainbow carpet that I have. I'm not sure, but it does highlight some of the problems with a camera-based solution that I'll talk about later. And just to say, I'm really nitpicking at this point because overall it's a stunning effect. It can also get really bright. This scene was filmed in full sun at 100% brightness. Normally you wouldn't see anything on the back in these sort of conditions, but in this case you can clearly see a pretty cool effect still. So definitely bright enough to be daytime usable. That said, the left-hand side I found was a little bit too washed out, too white, and that's likely because that's where the sun was reflecting off the TV screen. Now, in fairness, I wouldn't have watched TV like that anyway. The glare of the light was annoying. And if I can see it, then the camera certainly can. So this was more to just say it can be bright enough to see in daytime, rather than this is a practical usage scenario that you can now do. It gets bright. As a camera-based backlight solution, there are some considerations that I've alluded to. First and foremost is that any reflections on your screen will be picked up by the camera and assumed to be a part of what's displaying on the TV. So if you have harsh light somewhere else in the room, or your window is open to the sun, is reflecting your carpet, any of these will affect performance. You might get a washed out look to one portion of the screen or a random color appearing, and you might have no idea why, because your viewing angle is different to the camera's. It could even be as silly as like a Blu-ray disc case sitting on the table in front getting picked up as blue. From the camera's perspective, that will be a part of the color, and there's nothing you can do about that. If you're watching behind me closely, you might actually notice that this side is occasionally going pink when it shouldn't. That's because my hallway carpet is red, and it's picking up on that and giving a slight pink hue to everything. So if that's likely to be your situation, consider the AI Sync box instead, which uses HDMI signal analysis to do the exact same job, and it can still be integrated in otherwise all the same ways with the other Govee lighting products. The benefit of using a camera-based solution is just simplicity, really. It's not touching any of the signal cables, so there's no concerns about signal degradation or lag. And it's your only solution if you use your built-in TV OS or player software. An HDMI analysis is technically superior in every way, but it needs HDMI. So if you don't have an input signal because you're not using an external player, then this is the only decent solution. The quality of effect that you get is also going to be very much dependent on how far from the wall your TV is. About 10 inches or just under 1 foot is ideal. I've seen some people that post their setups with TVs that are mounted so almost flush with the wall, and I just think, why? On the other hand, if your TV is in the middle of the room or a couple of feet away from the wall, that's not going to reflect off anything and you won't get a pleasing effect. You will, however, be able to hook it into other fixtures, into a Govee DreamView system, so you could have, say, some uplighters or wall lights in the background doing the same thing as the TV. So you don't need to use the Govee TV Backlight with just an LED strip in isolation. You can enable what's called DreamView. I'll do that now. And that means the device takes control of other Govee lights that you've added. So if you have a couple of floor lamps, you can use those. If you have a fixture on the wall, you can add that. You can specify which part of the screen they correspond to. So in this case, the wall lamps are tied into the left and the right side of the screen. And it duplicates the functionality onto those. However, you do seem to have much less control over the image when you activate a DreamView setup, less configuration options to tweak on the fly, and the segmentation is a lot more noticeable compared to the more graduated LED strip on the back of the TV. So each of these floor lamps is separated only into 3 sections. In terms of matter support, it does support matter, otherwise I wouldn't be reviewing it. But of course, the main purpose of a TV backlight is to work while you're watching something and to be responsive to the content on your TV. So while the light itself supports matter, if you override the current settings with a color from your smart home of choice, then the bias lighting features stop working. You'll just get a uniform single color from matter. And in order to go back to bias lighting, you'll have to open up the Govee app, turn it on again, or reactivate DreamView, which isn't that convenient. So my advice would be to just use it for on-off most of the time. That'll respect your last settings so it can jump right back to being a responsive bias light. Don't change the color unless you really just want some extra ambience in the room behind a big blank TV screen. That said, on full brightness, it really will light up an entire room. It's that bright. So should you buy the TV Backlight Pro 3? There's no doubt that this triple lens camera system is the most accurate and most reliable camera-based TV backlight system so far. And if you've been frustrated with the previous or light model because you can never quite see all of your TV screen or the colors for you aren't nuanced enough, then absolutely, this is a fantastic upgrade. It is priced more premium though, and the improvement over the 3 Lite or T2 models might not justify the cost, unless you really care about the color fidelity or have a specific need for higher brightness. It's a case of diminishing returns, I think, at that point. I was using the T2 Lite for a long time, and to be honest, didn't ever think, oh, this is insufficient. You know, it did the job. The HDR compatibility, I think, is perhaps being oversold. Ultimately, it is just some light being reflected off of a wall. It's not as critical as, say, having an actual HDR or non-HDR display, which of course makes a huge difference. This is a bias light, and color accuracy I don't think is a huge issue with any of these systems. I've never been watching a movie and thought, that color of yellow on the bias lighting seems to be a few degrees off compared to the sand dunes it's supposed to represent. No, because I'm busy actually looking at the sand dunes and the giant worm coming out of them. If you have that much time to think about the bias lighting, then perhaps it's not a great movie in the first place. But it does mean that those bright scenes will be bright and the dark scenes dark, not just a color matching with a uniform brightness. There's certainly a lot more nuance to the Govee Backlight Pro 3. It's a premium, a pro option for those who must have the absolute best. Brightness, as I said, is much improved, enough to light up an entire room, though in practical terms that'll probably only have relevance to a few people. Most of the time I think you will leave it at the default brightness anyway, which is more than sufficient. It's set at 50% by default. The other benefit of having a higher pixel density, of course, is that your reflected image can be more granular, but again, and by default, the app isn't even set up to use more than a handful of segments at a time. You can change it to be a lot more granular, and I prefer the more granular, higher settings, but as I said, that's not even the default, so you would have to go in and change that. So the Govee TV Backlight 3 Pro is the best camera-based TV backlight yet, but do be aware that any camera-based system is going to be affected by visual artifacts, sometimes difficult to pin down reflections from any object or brightly coloured wall, carpet or mats. Sometimes even itself. If you have a white table that it's sitting on, it's going to sort of feed back into itself. You will always get a more accurate image with a box that actually reads your HDMI signal, but if for whatever reason that's either not an option or you just don't want to mess with the HDMI cabling, then this is your next best option. If you demand the best, then absolutely get this upgrade. Otherwise, if you're more budget conscious, then grab a bargain on the older models. You've been watching MatterAlpha.com reviews. Hit like if this review helped you to make your mind up about the Govee TV Backlight 3 Pro, and consider subscribing for more reviews, tutorials, and Matter explainers. Be sure to click over to MatterAlpha.com for even more content and free access to our full database of Matter certified products. Until next time.